Hello, I'm Caleb Bedillion. I cover local government and politics for the Daily Journal. I'm joined today by Tupelo's Mayor Jason Shelton. How are you doing today, Mayor?
I'm great. It's an honor to be here.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. We're here to talk about elections. They're coming up next week on May the 2nd. Voters will go to the polls to cast their ballots in municipal primary elections. Mayor Shelton is seeking his second term in office. He has one primary opponent, Candice Knowles. We invited her to join us, could not find a time at which she was willing to come, so I'm just going to be talking with Mayor Shelton today, asking him some questions, and he has no opponent in the general election, or I should say the primary winner has no opponent in the general election, so the Democratic primary will be the final word for Tupelo's mayoral election. So I want to get started, and Mayor, I want to ask you about housing.
Okay.
I know that was an issue, housing policy, and the need for more housing was an issue for the previous administration that preceded you. It was an issue during your campaign in 2013, and I still hear people talking about it. Hear other candidates talking about it, citizens. Tell me, what have you tried to do about that issue, and what still needs to be done?
Well, as you stated, that's been an issue for at least the last two elections in Tupelo, and I still, as we sit here today, I think that's the number one issue facing the city of Tupelo. When you look at measurable indicators of success for a municipality, Tupelo is knocking it out of the park on virtually every issue. Population growth is the exception, and not that we're doing poorly, it's just that we need to do better. So, over the past 4 years, we've tried to continue projects such as the Jackson West or West Jackson Street project. That has been the investment of several $1 million of funds to revitalize a part of the city of Tupelo, and it's been a success. What we've also tried to do is not really recreate that West Jackson Street project, but we've tried to be a little bit opportunistic all across the city of Tupelo. So West Jackson is great, but if we spend all our time and all our effort and all our money on that one part of the city, what are we doing with the rest of the city? So we've tried to invest citywide in revitalization projects. A lot of that is the acquisition and demolition of blighted properties. So we've done a lot of that, and then we've also just tried to make the city more attractive and more desirable for potentially new homeowners.
Tell me a little bit more about that West Jackson area, because candidate Shelton was somewhat less enthusiastic perhaps about that investment. It involves a significant investment of public money. Mayor Shelton seems a little more enthusiastic than the candidate was. Explain to me that shift and where you stand on that now.
Yeah, that's a good life lesson, so to speak, or political lesson at least. There's a difference in being a candidate and holding office. I did in the campaign 4 years ago often say the city of Tupelo does not need to be in the real estate business. And fundamentally or philosophically, I believe that. In an ideal situation, a city or a government should not be. As an office holder, as someone who looks at the facts and looks at reality, I don't think the city of Tupelo has a choice but to be in the real estate business. So I think if we want to see our city succeed and we want to see the revitalization efforts to be successful, I think we have to treat it like economic development, like we partner with businesses and industries to attract them to Tupelo. I think we have to partner in revitalization and invest in our neighborhoods so that we protect and promote and make each neighborhood in the city a more desirable place to live.
Are there any particular areas, now that West Jackson is underway, that you see as targets or priorities for future efforts?
Yeah, there are several. All throughout the city of Tupelo, we have great places to live, and then you see a couple of houses here and there that, for whatever reason, a lot of times it's an elderly family member has passed on, and there's no one local to take care of the property. It kind of goes into a state of disrepair. So there's little pockets like that in a lot of parts of the city that I think the city of Tupelo could be strategic, acquire those properties, remove those properties, and have the result of protecting the property values. But there's not a specific street such as Jackson Street or whatever, Lumpkin or you name it, that we're particularly looking at. And part of that, I don't mind telling viewers, is part of that if I say a street, investors automatically go there and then the price is double.
That's right. That's right. Housing aside, what do you anticipate if you're elected to a second term would be major priorities you want to pursue?
The fiber to home, high-speed fiber to home, is an initiative that we have not yet been successful on. C-Spire did the statewide contest, for lack of a better word. We didn't enter into that partnership, so I still think, and it relates to housing, but I still think that to be a more attractive and desirable city, we need the high-speed fiber to the home here in the city of Tupelo. And then, which to me it's also related, the quality of life events. That's something that we spent a lot of time on the past 4 years, but we also, and not to make excuses, but things like the tornado and the different events didn't allow us to do as much as we wanted.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about some of those crisis events. You dealt with several of those. There was the tragic shooting death of a Tupelo police officer fairly early in your term. Then there was a tornado. And then last year, a Tupelo police officer shot a local individual, fatally shot after a traffic stop. And I want to ask you perhaps more generally what you feel you've learned from some of those events.
Right. Well, I think our administration, we're kind of battle tested. We've been through the ringer, and I think as a team, our COO, Don Lewis, our department heads, police chief, fire chief, they all are vital to our response. I'm not just talking about myself, but as a team, I think we are battle tested and have proven leadership in times of crisis. One thing in particular that I learned is that the fact that you've gotten yourself elected mayor or the fact that you've gotten yourself elected as a council member doesn't make you an expert in a field that you're not already an expert in. So, in tornado response, in a law enforcement response situation, or even a PR disaster, I think that we learned that it's not only acceptable, but it's prudent to bring in an expert.
I want to focus specifically on Mr. Ronnie Shumpert's death last summer, which produced what probably is fair to say some of the most direct and personal criticism against you that you received during your term. Closing in on a year since that incident began, do you remain comfortable with the leadership your administration exhibited during that incident?
Yeah, it's one of those things that hindsight's always 20/20. You could always look back and think of something you could have done better or that you should have said differently. And our response to that's no exception. But we had a fairly singular goal, and that's that we were not going to allow the city of Tupelo to be like Ferguson or Baltimore or some of these other cities that have just erupted in violence across the country. So we certainly succeeded in that. The second goal was for calm in the city, and we did have some protests and some marches and demonstration, but by and large, compared to other cities, it was calm. Now, compared to Tupelo standards, it's stuff that's never happened in the city before. So, but when you compare it to what's happened in other cities, it was calm. But yeah, I had to make the decision of, do I look at what's best for me politically, or do I look at what's best for the city of Tupelo? And I'm going to choose what's best for the city of Tupelo. It certainly caused some strained relationships for me personally. But that's the nature of politics, and that's the nature of leadership.
Now, one of the things that came out of that was the creation, somewhat recently, of a police advisory board. It'll be a board of citizens that are supposed to kind of act as a point of communication between the community and law enforcement. Do you think moving forward, you supported the advisory board, and then, of course, the council then had to vote to approve it. Do you think that will prove to be a useful thing for the city, or will it just be an ongoing flashpoint of controversy?
No, I think it'll be proven to be useful for the city. The police department has bought into the idea. I think it has widespread support on the council, not unanimous support, but I think certainly a supermajority of support. I think our citizens are supportive of the concept. There's certainly always going to be people on both sides that are negative. So people on the side that don't want it, they don't want anything. And then people on the other side that are fairly anti-law enforcement, well, they want this attack watchdog group, and we're not going to have that. So what we have is something in the middle that's keeping with the Tupelo tradition of active and engaged citizens who will have a front row seat and hands-on approach to the committee.
All right, sounds good. Well, in conclusion, I want to give you an opportunity to make a final pitch to voters and explain why you think they should reelect you to a second term.
Okay, thank you. Well, over the past 4 years, while we have had our challenges, we've also had record-breaking success in the city of Tupelo. We've had 3 consecutive years of record economic growth in the city of Tupelo. We've been fiscally conservative in our approach to managing the city's budget. We've had right at $8 million of end-of-year budget surpluses, and we've reduced the city's overall debt by $2 million. We, in response to the things we did, crisis and other things, we're named a 5-time All-America City, Mississippi Municipal League City of the Year, Southeastern Tourism, the top award from that organization. So while we've had challenges, we've also seen record-breaking success, and I'm motivated and encouraged to continue that positive momentum in Tupelo, and that's why I'm asking for the citizens' vote for a second term.
All right, and don't forget to cast that vote. You need to go to the polls on Tuesday, May the 2nd. Mayor Shelton will be running in the Democratic primary. Most of the wards don't have contested Republican primaries. Ward 2 does. Those voters will have a choice to make. City council or mayor they want to cast a vote for. You can watch or read continuing election coverage on djournal.com or in print every day. Thanks so much.